Welcome to the Our Town Podcast. Today I have Clay Nutting with Canon Restaurant, and he is going to talk about the ups and downs of the restaurant business and how great it is. And it's one of my favorite places. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm glad you brought some fantastic food to Sacramento. It was about time that we got something good here.
Yeah, well, I owe a lot of that to my business partner, Brad, who is a, very talented chef. He's my business partner, as I mentioned. He had been someone that I've been wanting to work with for a long time. So when we were working on the concept for Canon, he was the first person that came to mind, and it so happened that he was looking to come back to Sacramento. He was raised here, born here, and so he had quite a bit of success in the market at a young age, and then had left to go open up hotels. And then his last stop before coming back to Sacramento, he earned a Michelin star at Solage in Calistoga. So yeah, he definitely is a big part of, what we do. And we've got a great team, a lot of folks that have been with us from day one. So we're really fortunate, even despite the really crazy couple of years we had through the pandemic, and we were able to find ways to survive. But yeah, we're really proud of what we do in the market. There have been storied restaurants for a long time that have done really amazing things in our community. I think the Sacramento restaurant scene, again, had really started to flourish over the past, I would say, 10 years or so. Again, not diminishing any of the great restaurants that have been around in the beginning, or not in the beginning, but, have been established. And just to be able to add kind of our creative, adventurous, contemporary type of cuisine to the market, and to have the type of response that we've had has, been really an incredible honor. So, yeah, we're proud of what we do, and we're excited about what we do. And, we're just continuing to push forward. That's kind of our ethos.
Yeah. So how did you get started in the business? Were you in the business for a long time before? Or?
Yeah. So my first restaurant that I was involved in was co-founded Lowbrow in 2000 and I think we opened on New Year's Eve 2012.
What a night to open.
Yeah.
It's a bad night to open.
Yeah, and so it was great. We had a very successful evening, and yeah, so that was when I had met with my previous business partner on that opportunity. I had done a lot of work in the events space. So in college, I co-founded a nonprofit called Concerts of Charity, had a lot of friends who were involved in the music space, and so I had done a lot of promotion and helped my friends get folks to come out to their shows, and started doing some of that here in Sacramento. So I met my former business partner doing those types of events, and he had this idea for Lowbrow, the brand and the concept, and I said, man, this looks like a really cool idea, and we rolled up our sleeves and opened that restaurant. So that was my first foray into that industry, and just really loved hospitality, the idea of creating a space that you're welcoming people to, and being able to take care of people and have them kind of escape their everyday and celebrate their best moments with us, anniversaries, birthdays, job promotions. It's just such a compelling industry to be in, and I've been lucky to have the success that we've had to be able to do other things as well. We have another restaurant that we opened up in February 2022 in West Sacramento in the Bridge District called Franquette, which is a French-inspired cafe that's had some success as well. So yeah, I didn't necessarily see myself in this space as a kid per se, but I've always just loved hospitality as a concept. My family was always having people over and doing, we have an extended family too, people who I thought were my cousins growing up who were just neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And so that I think I got that from my family, and to be able to do that as a career has been very rewarding, and looking forward to more to come.
Now, are you from Sacramento?
I was born in Sacramento, and my parents moved us at a young age to Massachusetts, where my dad was from.
Okay.
We had a small family farm there that needed some caretaking, and so we were raised there for myself and my two younger brothers for most of my life through college. And then my parents wanted to move back to California at some point once we were, kind of through school, my brothers and I moved them back and stayed. Just didn't want to shovel snow anymore, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's awful, right?
Yeah.
So did you go to high school here, or was it?
No, I went to high school, college, all through college in Massachusetts, and then moved here in 2001.
Okay. So fairly new to the area.
Yeah, although now I was thinking about this the other day. I probably have lived just as long in California than I have. I've always considered myself, born in Sacramento, raised in Massachusetts, but having been here since 2001, that's quite a long time. So
seems like it was yesterday.
I guess I'm split half and half between the two now.
Oh wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Did you guys open the restaurant next door to Loeb? Were you part of that? There was a charcuterie place. It was really good.
We opened a Block Butcher Bar shortly after we opened Lowbrow, and then I left there in 2015 or so.
Okay. What was it like getting through? I mean, been going to your restaurant ever since you guys opened. Always loved it. One of my favorite things is the tater tots and caviar. It's like
yeah, that's a fun dish.
It's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And what we loved was during the pandemic, you guys really expanded out that patio and covered it and made it super welcoming. And it's just really it seems like it's added on to your business.
Yeah, that was really fortunate timing. We had done that work prior to the pandemic. We had really looked at it as an opportunity to create kind of this indoor-outdoor-esque space, so we had when we opened, Roman shades kind of just covering the patio, and it didn't give us any weather cover.
Yeah.
And we would get a lot of requests because we do have a tendency to get a lot of special occasion type of bookings and reservations at a restaurant. So we would have requests for company parties and wedding celebrations and big birthdays and things like that. And we didn't want to disrupt our regular dining service in the restaurant. So we said, what if we made the patio a little more weather protected? So we made that investment prior to the pandemic, and it just turned out to be an incredible fortuitous blessing. We were able to do a lot of seating out there because of the restrictions and, have the ventilation and make people feel comfortable being outside while also protecting them from the elements. So our patio is about the same size of our dining room inside the restaurant, and it's great to have. You can see folks in the winter when it's raining, and outside of New Year's Eve this past year, that was the first time that was a very incredible weather event, and we had some rain penetration on our patio, but anyhow, we have the ability to protect from the sun in the summer with fans and things like that. So it's been great. So that during the pandemic, it ended up being, while others were kind of scrambling to create their outdoor seating areas, we had one that was established. So that certainly helped us, given the circumstances, which were pretty dire for a while for a lot of industries, but especially the restaurants industry.
Took it hard. How was it navigating that?
I mean, it's very difficult to kind of look back and think about how scary it was at this point because we've made it through.
Yeah.
But at the time, when we learned that we were going to shut our business down for the shelter-in-place mandate, our employees were just scared, didn't know when they were going to be able to work again. We didn't know that any of the, PPP, EIDL opportunities were going to be out there. We just, saw the life that we've poured into this business, on the precipice of what we didn't know. Closure, who knew, right?
Yeah.
And so, we were pretty entrepreneurial right out of the gate. We got together with Patrick Mulvaney, myself, and Brad, my business partner. We got together with a couple other folks, Santana Diaz from UC Davis. The Sac City School District folks were in the room the day after we closed, and we said, okay, we've got food in our walk-in. We've got farmers and vendors with food in their warehouses and fields that aren't going anywhere now. can we start feeding folks in the community that might need food, and maybe we can find some contracts. And so we started, with this rough idea of a program where we would work with local restaurants to provide meals to people in need.
That was you? That was your guys' little group?
Yeah, so Family Meal is our program that
I
we
remember
founded.
seeing that everywhere. That is awesome. Okay.
It's still going to this day, and it's been an amazing thing to be a part of. At first it was about our survival and helping out the community, right? We knew that there were going to be people who were sheltering in place and relied on transportation to get them to their grocery store or to places where they got meals or having meals brought to them, and that those things were shut off, at least in the beginning. And so we started making meals and creating the program from scratch, and we got our first contract with the city to do some SHRA properties. There's 11 in Sacramento, and so we did some meal service to those properties. We rented U-Hauls and brought them to people, and eventually we got into partnership with a great local transportation organization called Paratransit. They've really bent over backwards to help this program succeed, and owe a lot to them. And we developed the framework for Great Plates, which is a statewide initiative.
Okay.
And we managed the local Great Plates initiative here in Sacramento, which was feeding seniors. Worked with over 40 restaurants locally across the state. I think it's somewhere close to 800 restaurants.
Wow.
And then the program started to evolve. We got a contract with Sierra Health Foundation to do a program to help keep folks that actually had tested positive, to keep them home from spreading the virus. We did that. We started doing more community-based work where we work with food lockers and other community hubs to get food out to folks in need. And so we're continuing to build on that. We're really proud of the work that we've done, and there's still a lot more to be done as well. So being able to contract with restaurants who, despite things being back to normal, have had a tough road and still are kind of in recovery phase, and then also to be able to take care of folks in our community that need food. It's been very rewarding, and we're excited to continue to build on that work.
Yeah, no, that's great. So where do you go from here? I mean, you have a pretty successful restaurant. Are you expanding? Are you expanding into new markets? Are you doing anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've always got irons in the fire. We've got, projects and properties that we're looking at. We don't have anything to disclose or any news to break right now. But that's always something that we're considering. Franquette, as an example, the cafe in West Sacramento, I think has a real opportunity to maybe have a couple other, similar cafes in the market. Canon is a singular restaurant. We would never really expand that, but there are other, kind of concepts and opportunities that we could, do if, it depends on a lot of different factors. Its location is important.
Yeah.
We are also interested in developing our own properties at some point. So, we're trying to continue to build upon the success that we've had and expand upon what we're doing, but also trying to be mindful and thoughtful and look for the right opportunities. But we're always looking.
Yeah. Now, speaking of location, your location is pretty awesome, but back in the day, it was not like a great place to be. It was just warehouses.
Yeah.
And how did you score that spot?
Well, so we had a landlord who is developing the property. So that particular building has a great gym called Fitness Rangers that's attached to, it's part of the building. And I would always drive by and see and notice Fitness Rangers because it had a contemporary look to it, and in that industrial kind of area, it stood out. And Kevin Donnelly and I who's the landlord, had known each other in the community for a while, and I think when I was looking to develop something new, he had me come out and take a look at the space. And there was something about the kind of tucked away but yet kind of close thing that appealed to me. Some of our investors and even investors that had passed on the opportunity, were a little skeptical of the location, But it ended up turning into kind of an asset in a way, where it's fun to go to a place and then not be super familiar with it. And then there's, the kind of industrial, residential kind of nature of it. And then you walk into a place that has, really beautiful, thoughtful design. You kind of feel a little transported in a way, like the kitchen, right, is right over here near your office, and
behind
it's in
Taco Bell.
Right, exactly, and yet you walk in and you're transported, so there's something to that. I think not necessarily, it doesn't always have to be an A+ location. It has a lot to do with what you do with that space. So it was just an interesting, kind of process where it might not have been an A+ per se, but we made it more of a destination than what I think a lot of people
But it's so
expected.
easy. I mean, it's right off the freeway, pretty much.
Yeah, it's not far. I mean, you've got UC Davis to our, I guess, east, and then you got Sutter to our west, so there's some employment. You got the cannery.
Yeah.
Sackyard came online maybe a year after us or a few months after us, and anyhow, there's some good synergy there with, just having energy. And then down the street you got Crew and Alora, and so there's stuff in the neighborhood, and so but the street itself was definitely, with Muzio being there a long time ago. I think some people, and Western Feed is there too.
Yeah, Western
so
Feed.
People had some familiarity, but they couldn't quite place where we were, but we've been lucky to create a little bit of a presence there.
Yeah, because you had an old Italian bakery, right?
Yep, Muzio.
Is it still there, or are they gone?
They've been shut down for, I don't know, it's probably been 20 years now.
Oh, wow, okay.
But the facade is really cool. I'm sure one day it'll be developed, but not, doesn't look imminent.
Yeah. So speaking of, like, when you're putting a restaurant together, how did the concept come? I know you work with your partner that's a chef. Mm-hmm. How did the concept come, and do you get a whole bunch of investors involved, or is it do you do friends and family investment? How do you put something like that together? Yeah,
it depends on the circumstance. So conceptually, it really came for the food from Brad. What I was interested in doing was kind of an approachable place, but that was, had some elegant contemporary, kind of feel. So when I first started talking to Brad, he had a vision for doing this really adventurous, fun, kind of new American cuisine that, challenged the palate because it was progressive, but it also had some kind of comfort elements to it. Like the tots, our perfect example, is probably one of the first menu items that he concepted. And, the idea is like you take something as humble as the tater tot, right?
Yeah.
And you do it very elegantly. So there's a 40 or 50 ingredient mole that they make, so it's just really time intensive and beautiful and fermenting and delicious. So there's some elegant nature, and then you've got the pickled vegetables, which gives it some acidity, and then just the tots are hand pressed, so they're made from scratch. So there's just conceptually, again, it's a very humble food item, but done in an elegant way. And so that was, other items started to come from that. Another popular item we have is our Urfa chili chicken drumsticks. And the drumsticks are confit, and then they're, fried and then dipped in this really beautiful Hungarian chili called an Urfa chili. And it has this just funky, chocolatey, spicy kind of flavor, and it's got this citrus and garlic zest on top of it, and crunchy garlic, and so it's got this just, again, it's a chicken drumstick, but it's just done in a way that's really, thoughtful and has multiple touches, and a lot of time and care goes into putting that on the plate. So there's more than meets the eye with a lot of the dishes that we do. From a business standpoint, just getting it off the ground, this was a challenging space because it had not been a restaurant before, so it wasn't a second-gen space. That means that you've got to do all of the plumbing and electrical and mechanical, and so there's a lot involved in building out a restaurant space that if it was just a warehouse as this one was. So we were lucky we had landlords that were motivated and wanted us to succeed and do something special. And so they, had done quite a bit of contribution themselves. And then from a fundraising perspective, with restaurants, especially one-off restaurants, you're generally working within your network, and whether that's friends and families, acquaintances, other folks that want to see. What I find is that there are a lot of people, and this is what's great about Sacramento, that have had some success themselves that want to bet on other entrepreneurs and are willing to write, a check, small or big. Any check when you're trying to get off the ground as an entrepreneur is helpful. And it's just about helping, and I hope to be in that position one day, right? Where, you've got these young entrepreneurs, and if we want to have a vibrant, entrepreneurial community, they need to know that there are people who are willing to take a risk on them and take a chance and write a check and help them get their businesses off the ground. And so we're just lucky to have been able to tap into a network of folks like that who saw the vision, knew that Brad had a great reputation. I had done some things in the community, and was very passionate about what we were trying to accomplish, and said, we want to support you, and that's how that happened. And then other circumstances, it just always depends. It's like ideally, you might have a capital, stack that includes, some loan financing, and some investment. And then hopefully you have enough success where you can put some of your own dollars into it as well. Yeah. So it just depends on the circumstance.
So I will tell you, I really go to restaurants. I first thing I do, I look at a menu before I go. I look at the menu and I go, does this look like it's a place I want to go? Then I go straight to the wine list and I go, okay, does this wine go with this food? And if it does, I will give it a shot, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll look at the wine list and I'll just say, well, the food looks good, but the wine list looks like Southern Wine and Spirits picked this wine list for them.
Right.
And your wine list is incredible. Like everything on there. Laura is another one that has a fantastic wine list. And I would say it's so important to have a great wine. Who put your wine list together?
Yeah, so our general manager, Jack Winks, him and his wife were our first two hires at Canon. So we had met them through Kevin Donnelly, who was our landlord. He knew them through some friends in the neighborhood in East Sacramento. And he said, hey, these folks have just moved back to the country. They were in Paris for a while.
Oh, that explains it.
Yeah, and Jack is from London or England, and he and his wife met in Paris and then came back to Sacramento. Jack had worked in the bar industry in Paris, and Elena was cooking and baking. And she had been doing some work at the kitchen. I can't remember if Jack was doing anything at the time, but they had just kind of landed back in Sacramento. And so we scooped them up, and Elena was our opening pastry chef, and Jack was our opening bartender/bar director. He's helping us put together a cocktail program.
Which is amazing as well.
Yeah, right? It's a real standout. I think, yeah. So we're really proud of the entire bar kind of concept that he's put together at Canon. Cocktails are amazing. The wine list is great. And so he just started gravitating to taking on more responsibility, became our bar director, did a lot of the buying, the wine selection and curation, and then ultimately became our general manager, but still has that responsibility for selecting the wine list. And, one of the things that I think he does really well in working with Brad and the culinary team, Sean Rummery is our chef de cuisine, and Bucky Bray is our sous chef. And, what they're doing is, again, very adventurous, a lot of flavor, a lot of sauce, a lot of, vibrant dishes. And so you need something just as adventurous and unique. That's what's fun about drinking wine, and especially if you're looking to kind of pair it with a dining experience. Canon, as concept, is meant to be shareable plates, right? They're small plates, and you might have on your table sauce and flavors from all over the globe, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not necessarily following a particular profile. You're just looking to have wine that meets the moment, right?
Yeah.
And so the moment can be about the cuisine. It could be about the celebration that you're enjoying at the time. You know, if it's an anniversary, you know, if it's a party, if it's a, you know, promotion, there's, you know, wine can be not just paired with food, but paired with, you know, the vibe that you're looking to create. And, you know, I think the other thing is about discovery. So a big part, like when you mention looking at a menu before you come to a restaurant, you know, it's one of the interesting things that we've had obstacles that we've had to overcome, and we do it through trust, right? And people trust that they're going to have a great experience at Canon, even if what you read on the menu, you have no idea what it might be. You know, you're like, what is an Urfa chili? You know? And, you know, so what we like to think is like when you walk into Canon, you're really trusting us to curate a wine list and a menu that's going to be great regardless of where you end. You can almost close your eyes and point your finger and it's going to be good. Because we've put the thought and time and effort into making sure that it's going to be excellent. Now, we love talking with you and trying to get a sense for what you're trying to, you know, if you might be a California Pinot drinker, and maybe this particular, you know, wine list doesn't have a California Pinot on it, which a lot of people might expect, but we have another varietal that we feel meets that profile, right? If you're looking for a lighter bodied red that has a lot of the characteristics, we have a wine that meets that, and you're now learning about a cool producer from another part of the world, or maybe another part of, you know, California that you're unfamiliar with. So that's part of it, you know. It's like, I think a lot of the value that you get in going out to eat, especially when you come to a restaurant like Canon, is in the experience of learning or having something kind of challenge you in a good way, you know, where it's, whether it's a flavor or a dish or something that's unfamiliar as far as a wine producer or wine region, that is there's a value add to that. You know, if you allow, if you want, you know, if you allow yourself to have that type of, you know, open-mindedness towards the curation that we've done. When you come and eat and drink with us, you're going to have something delicious. Maybe it's familiar, maybe it's not, but that's part of the fun. Yeah,
I like that it doesn't have those things and you can try something new. You know, I like finding a Greek wine on there. You're like, let's just give it a shot.
It's delicious. Let's see what this is all about. I can't pronounce it, but it's really good.
I don't even know what that letter is.
You know? It's a lot of extra letters in it.
Exactly.
We're really proud of, you know, and that's Canon is really a platform for people like Jack and Brad and Sean, our chef de cuisine, to, you know, really push, because our guests have come to expect that from us. You know, they come looking for something intriguing. And so when you have that permission and it allows you as a creative person, whether it's at the bar or in the kitchen, to kind of push the boundaries a little bit, it's really exciting. That's where progress comes from, right? You know, progress doesn't come from the status quo. It comes from experimentation and trying and research and development and bringing things forward and seeing how people respond, and obviously doing it from the, you know, kind of the core belief and like the, you know, the basic tenets of flavor and, you know, what's good and what's not. You got to have a good palate, right? To start, but then from there it's just taking it to the next level. And we've been really lucky to both build a clientele and also have a clientele within this market that has come to expect and loves, you know, kind of contemporary progressive cuisine.
Yeah. Now, one of my favorite things, because whenever I go out, I order like I eat like a pig. I order everything, every single like app. I will order every one because I just want to try everything. And the regardless of what restaurant it is, the whole table's full.
Yeah.
Who came up with the concept of doing the shared plates? Because I think it's what's necessary.
And that's Brad again. You know, when we were talking about the idea of the juxtaposition between this kind of elegant fine dining-esque experience and this kind of creative, unique, you know, food and components, and then the approachability, you know, of having a neighborhood feel, kind of come as you are. You don't have to be dressed to the nines, you know. It's like this interesting melding of kind of ideas, And he thought that the most fun that you can have is that type of experience where you're bringing things on the table, and it's, eating is about breaking bread and having an experience with the person you're dining with, or even if it's just yourself, having an experience and getting value from what's on the table and what you're tasting. And so having this kind of idea where you can bring multiple dishes out and, things hit the table as you're just finishing something else up, there's an energy behind that I thought really worked with what we were trying to accomplish. It takes a lot of the dishes, as I mentioned, on the plate, have the fine dining technique and time and effort and thought, but they are done in a way that's also fun and approachable. And so that was definitely some of the ideas that Brad had brought to the table that have really worked out for us.
Yeah. Now, service-wise, I will say your service is impeccable.
Thank you.
They go above and beyond. They're thorough in the knowledge of the food, the wine on the plate, whether it's a server or som or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
How much training goes into that?
Yeah, great question. In the beginning, we were all hands on deck. Brad has a very thorough fine dining background, and my approach to hospitality, I think, were really a good pairing, which is, I just want everyone to feel at home and to feel comfortable. It's just this warm, genuine kind of hospitality approach mixed with kind of Brad's experience coming from a Michelin-starred restaurant at Solage, where it's about the attention to detail, right?
Yeah.
And so just anticipating people's needs, being knowledgeable about what we're serving, and because the description doesn't always do it justice, right? You have, might say just chicken drumstick or chili chicken drumsticks on the menu, but it doesn't really tell the whole story of the dish and the time and the thought that goes behind what looks simple and what ends up on the plate. And so having servers that can, depending on what the person's looking for, a lot of people, and it's an interesting kind of phenomenon over the past, people have been cooking at home for a long time, but I feel like with the Food Network and things like that, people are much more knowledgeable about technique and various components. And so people are more curious about what is on their plate and how it was prepared, and what are the different, techniques involved in getting it on the plate. And, Canon, a lot of our dishes have multiple components. It might be one dish, but there might be 6 components, might be 10 components on the dish. And so, there's a lot of pickling and marinating and fermenting and so forth, and sauces and herbs. And we've got a big garden outside where we get a lot of our herbs from. And so people are just curious and interested. And so having people who can communicate that and talk to people about that, I think, is an important part of the experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just we're lucky. We have a lot of folks who have been with us from day one, so they just, they know the program and what we expect. And so when we bring other people on board, they kind of fit right into, what the expectations are, because we've got other folks that have been there for so long and can show the way. And with Jack, who's the general manager, and we've got Jess Rooker, who has been with us for a long time. She is kind of our lead server, and Brad and others. We've got a lot of experience in the restaurant and set a high bar for what's to be expected, and we're lucky that we've found some great folks on our team.
Now, do you put them through, like in the very beginning, do they taste all the dishes? Because this drives me nuts at a restaurant when you ask, like, hey, what do you think of this dish to the server? And they go, I don't know, I don't eat that. Or I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, so that's all, yes. So there's a pretty thorough onboarding process. We've got one of the benefits of having a small independent restaurant is like if you have a question for the cook or the chef or the person who made the dish, they're right there. Brad's right there. Sean's right there. So information sharing and knowledge, again, it's just all part of the expectation. And so knowing the food and being familiar with it, we have like the expo pass where the food comes from the kitchen to get its final touches. And often when you first start there, you kind of hang out with the folks at the pass because they have all the details on the dish, all the components that go into it. So there is a process, that I wouldn't necessarily say it's like the most rigorous process, because we often hire folks who have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But just being able to be familiar with each dish that crosses the plate. Every time there's a new dish on the menu, there's a thorough lineup where you get to learn about that dish, you get to taste the dish, you hear from the chef who created it, all the techniques, the cooking process, the components. So yeah, I mean, it's to have a restaurant that's not just good but great. Those are the details that make a big difference, and I think that we do a good job of paying attention to the details while also allowing our staff to feel comfortable and have their own personality. And we don't have uniforms. It's meant to feel neighborly, but also the attention to detail is what creates the separation.
Yeah. Now, kind of going into the kitchen and the menu, you have your all-stars, right? You have your tots, you have the chicken, which I've had plenty of times. You've had the pickled vegetable plate that I've had a million times.
Yeah.
Do you constantly change the menu?
Yeah, so we have kind of what we would call our standards, right? So you'll always find the tots on the menu, the drumsticks, and we'll always have a bread service. The bread will change from time to time. Like right now we have a focaccia, but we might have a molasses bread. That can be seasonal as well. And oysters, we source our oysters. We either get them from Sunfish or we have another distributor that has great varieties, and so that's something that people know that they will get in the pickles, right?
Yeah.
So, but the pickles change as well, so depending on what we're pickling, it could be anything from green beans to strawberries to etc. So everything else is seasonal.
Okay.
And then within the season, it depends on what's available, right? So within a season, like right now, corn is widely available. It's the summer, right? And so the question is like, how are we going to prepare it? And then you might go to a farmer's market like our chefs do every Wednesday in downtown, and they go to a few others as well throughout the week. And what's available? What are the farmers saying they have an abundance of, or what are the farmers saying tastes really good, right? Yeah. And so there's a lot of relationship that we're lucky to have with our agricultural community here, being in this hub of agriculture that we are, where we have direct relationships with farmers who are bringing things to us and saying either we got a lot of this, would you like some? It's a good price, or this is so delicious right now. So you'll see, while we have a seasonal menu, which, seasons, you think of the classic, winter, spring, summer, fall kind of seasons. Within those seasons, our menu is pretty dynamic based on what's available and what we're finding and what tastes delicious.
Yeah. Now, are you guys only buying from small purveyors or small farmers, or do you buy from the bigger guys?
Yeah, I would say that almost all of our produce is coming from like a regional, local farmers and producers. Nice. And or a vendor who sources from local farmers and producers. And then you have some people, there's always, you see these memes about like, oh, you see a Cisco truck in front of a restaurant and you know that restaurant's doing frozen french fries and things like that. But a lot of these purveyors, whether it's Bi-Rite or Cisco or these larger distributors, they have a lot of other product, like salt and, flour and things like
toilet
that.
Paper.
That you're getting from them. So that's not always the case. But I would say, just like every other Sacramento restaurant, we're fortunate that's in our peer group, to have such an abundance, and predominantly, and I don't think I can say 100%, but, just about is all being sourced locally.
Yeah. Now, how about proteins? Are they pretty sourced locally?
Yeah, we do our best. Again, we're in Northern California, so, you got Mary's Chicken, that's close by, and we've used a lot of ranchers for our beef that's close by as well, and then Liberty Duck and Superior. We get goat and lamb from very small farmer as well. So, yeah, it's when you can, we source locally, and that's, I would say, like I said, I don't know if I can say 100%, but pretty darn close.
Yeah. What do you guys do with goat? It's like one of my favorite things, but nobody ever has it.
So generally, the way we've prepared it is we'll roast it, we'll smoke it and roast it, and we have done like this kind of West African style peanut stew with the goat. And we've done a couple other preparations. It's incredible. We've done whole roasted goat for like a big party and it was more of a Middle Eastern preparation. Had like rice and eggplant and things of that nature. But we've done the stew is the one that I've seen most commonly. We don't get it very often, but when we do, it's almost like a special, right? We just run it for a weekend. And so more, I'm not calling them exotic proteins, but like proteins that are not so commonly found on menus. We generally just like run like you might walk in one night and we have rabbit or we have quail or, other items like that sometimes we'll get a small, because these are small farmers, right? So we'll just get a small amount and work with that and put out a dish just for a weekend or so. Yeah.
Now, how does the structure of because you mentioned that some chefs will come up with different dishes. How's the structure of the kitchen work?
Yeah, so we have chef de cuisine, and we have Brad, my business partner, who's like I would say the executive chef. He's the owner of the business, right? And he's chef, so he kind of is the final say. And usually and then Sean Rummery, our chef de cuisine, and Bucky Bray, our sous chef, work on develop ideas. Sean is mostly the idea guy, and him and Bucky have worked together for a long time, so they kind of bounce things off each other. And Brad is often the kind of like person who's like helping refine the dish and or coming up with them himself. So conceptually, the cuisine style and the idea of the shareable plates and the flavor profiles and the kind of creativity comes from Brad. Our chef de cuisine kind of creates menu ideas off of that and then brings them forward, and then there's a refinement process generally. That's kind of like a
final overall.
Yeah, it's really just a team process, where you've got creativity, ideas, we've got, cookbooks and inspiration, from all over the place, and, they also have their own world experience that they're kind of bringing to the table, all within the kind of like canvas of Canon.
Yeah.
And then Brad helps refine it or ensure that it fits within that canvas as well. So, and it really doesn't, I think great ideas come from anywhere, and we've had that happen where ideas get brought forward from anyone. And then, ultimately just try, how do you refine that and produce it so that it meets the Canon alignment?
Yeah. Question, where did the name Canon come from? Like, what is that?
Yeah, so it was pretty aspirational as a name. We were just kind of contemplating what we were trying to accomplish. And when Brad and I started working together, our vision to kind of create a restaurant that we hoped to have at the time set a standard in Sacramento for this new American contemporary experience where it was fine dining but done in a way that felt neighborly, and that's tough to do, and so but we hope to set a precedent through our vision that could be considered among the canon of like great restaurant experiences in Sacramento. So that was the idea. It was like this aspirational concept where it's like we want to embody, what it would mean to be thought of one day as like, among the great restaurants in Sacramento. Yeah. Like we were that ambitious when we came out of the gate, for better or worse, but that's just how we are. We're just pretty ambitious, but we're also head down trying to do our great things, and we're lucky that it panned out.
Yeah.
It's like I was talking earlier about my business partner Brad. I mean, he's an incredible talent. He's got a gift, and his concept for what Canon became was definitely a signature. And so we're really proud and feel like one day we will be considered in the canon of great restaurants in Sacramento.
Yeah, nice. So speaking of other restaurants in Sacramento, do you guys all have like a group that you are part of that everybody kind of looks out for each other, talks, hey, here's what I'm seeing, here's what's going on in my neck of the woods, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a very close-knit community. I would say that one of the unique things about our restaurant scene here in Sacramento is that I could pick up the phone and call any one of the operators around Sacramento, and they would jump to help if we needed it.
Yeah.
and vice versa. You know, they're just like any other community. There's folks that hang around with each other and things of that nature, but for the most part, it's like we know we're all in competition with each other, and it's super healthy. And, you know, even like when I talked about founding the family meal program, calling Patrick and saying, hey, we need to do something, like, let's work together. I've had times where Allura will call us and say, hey, we've got some folks trying to walk in, but we don't have the space for them. Can you take them right now? And vice versa. So again, it's just it's a great, tight-knit, we're all rooting for each other. We all want to see each other succeed. We're all proud of each other. Just there are chefs and restaurants that are doing just incredible stuff, you know, just like, you know, Localis was recognized for their second Michelin star, and the kitchen their third, and, you know, and then you've got great restaurants that all the chefs love, and then, you know, become like a cult hit, like Binchoyaki, you know, and like where
I go there quite a bit.
and, you know, you walk in and you're like, oh, this is where all the chefs are. You know, it must be great, and they are. You know, Toki and Craig do incredible work, and going to Allura and going to Crew and going to, you know, Mazzullo, and, you know, the list goes on. There's just so much, you know, and just the list goes on and on and on and on with great restaurants, but also great people behind it that if I needed anything or they needed anything, we would jump to each other's side, and that's unique and a real gift for any industry, right?
Yeah.
Competing, but also wanting to see each other succeed.
Yeah. So where do you go from here?
I mentioned we're kind of contemplating, investigating, and developing some other concepts and opportunities, so we'll kind of continue to pursue that. We've got our family meal program, the community feeding program, that, again, we're just continuing to build upon that work, and we're hoping to scale that and also show other communities how to do something similar, and really work with also specific populations within the community that are especially in need of help, kids transitioning out of foster care, justice involved individuals, and just making sure that they get off on the right foot, and food is a real important component to that.
Yeah.
And then we're also launching an app as well called Barker. It's during the pandemic, we created a curbside ordering app, and now it's kind of evolved into something where we're hoping to encourage people to discover other restaurants in the community that they might not be thinking about, by creating incentives and rewards for helping people support local restaurants, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that is something that is on the precipice of launching in the community. So yeah, just, you know, there's a lot going on with all that, and just continuing to try and keep Canon and Franquette operating at the level of excellence that we expect, and also have time for my family. So.
Which is hard, right? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I seriously appreciate it. And if anybody wants any information on this, it'll all be down below, and you would not be mistaken by making a reservation and going to Canon and enjoying an absolutely amazing meal. And I did not know you had the other restaurant, and I will be going to visit that other restaurant very soon.
That'd be great.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.